it's Jo here from Jo's Country Junction. I am in my sewing room and I am in Northeast Iowa, and today I have a Sew with Jo video with you. Hi, it's Jo from Jo's Country Junction. I'm here in Northeast Iowa and I am enjoying a snow day. It's January, I don't know, I'm not at work so I'm not sure the date. Maybe about the 8th or 9th. 10th maybe, I don't know. When I'm at work, I work as a receptionist, and when I'm there I have the calendar in front of me all the time and I can tell you what date it is any day, but if I'm not at work, whatever day of the date, I never just remember. So anyway, I'm here. I am hoping this video comes to you fairly quickly after the previous video. I have shot 2 in the last week or so, hoping my daughter will come over and edit them at some point, maybe when it's not a snow day, because I don't want her traveling in bad weather, even though she just lives about 6 blocks from me here in town. As I said, I'm coming to you from Northeast Iowa on a snow day. It started snowing overnight, and my boss is really great, and she said we won't have many people coming in anyway, so you guys can just stay home. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. If you're from snow country, you know that there's always this build up before the storm comes, and then, you know, is the prediction center going to get the amount of snow right, and are the winds really going to blow, and is it heavy snow or light snow? There's a lot of factors that you have to put into living in snow country, because all of those things can make a big difference. I think we got probably about 5 inches of snow last night, and it's been snowing on and off all day today as well. We're supposed to get a few more inches, so and then I heard the winds are supposed to kick up. I don't notice the winds so much here in town, but if you're not from snow country, winds plus snow means snow drifts and the roads get to be so that they're impassable. But right now, I just saw a car go by on the main road out here. Not much traffic, but there's some. So I'm just gonna stay home and enjoy my day. I spent most of my morning working on the quilt on the long arm. You can see it back here. It's still on the long arm. It's still not done. If you watched one of my previous videos, this is the oversized flying geese. I believe I did a video for that. And if I didn't do a video, you can find out more about it on the blog. But right now I'm doing some very intense long arming on it. It's looking good. I really like what I picked, and I'm glad that I committed to what I committed to, but woofda. That baby takes a lot of work, because I think there's no space bigger than this far apart probably that doesn't have a stitch in it. So I'm about a third of the way done, I guess I'd say, maybe a little over a third of the way done. So I have a few more hours, and I've already put probably, I would guess, maybe 3 hours into it. So I've got a few more hours yet to go. But I need to take a break from that, because after a while, if you haven't done long arming before, oh, your back, your arms, your shoulders, you know, everything has a little bit of an issue. So I thought, oh, I'll just take a break, and I'm going to be sewing some 9 patches, and I thought I would just invite you to sew along with me. In advance to me filming here, I had been busy and I sewed strips together. I got a bunch of strips here. I've got strips in another bucket down here. A whole basket here of blue, mostly navy, some other colors, and I have neutrals. And for me, that means anything that kind of falls into this category that you can see here. Some are Civil War prints, some are old calicos, some are, like grunge fabric. There's a little bit of everything going on here. Some are white on whites. Most of this is more cream based than anything else, but you could see, you know, some prints that might be harder to use. I try to use them up when I make a scrap quilt like this. I think this might be an old Debbie Mum fabric. I'm not sure. Or maybe is this a Kansas Tribbles fabric? I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, whatever I had in my 2-inch bin, I cut up, and I keep my fabric sorted. So if I do a project, most of my projects use either 1.5", 2-inch, 2.5", 3.5-inch pieces. So when I'm done sewing, or when I'm done cutting out a quilt, anything that's left over from a previous quilt I was making, I cut the rest of that piece of fabric into strips rather than have to fold it up and restore it again. And then I throw them into strip buckets. And so here I rated my reproduction fabric, which it's not always all reproduction. Oftentimes it's something that like this, because this technically isn't a reproduction fabric, but it will go and blend with them well. So I put them all in a 2-inch bucket, and I have big buckets underneath my long arm. There, I use those under the bed totes, and I have them under there. I have those boxes sorted into half of the box is dark, half the box is lights. And then I can just, when it's time to make a quilt, I can just grab the strips that are already cut, and then I go with it. Most of the quilts I make are scrappy, so this isn't a big deal for me, what I cut up or how I cut up, because I'm going to be making a scrappy quilt anyway. When people call for a 2-color quilt, that will mean for me 2 colors, but it never typically means that one fabric is all of the same. Sometimes maybe a background print I'll use all the same, but rarely, if ever, do I ever use one single print throughout an entire quilt. I like it that way. Part of the reason is a long time ago when I started quilting, we had a family of 5. We didn't have a ton of money. It was easy for me to go in and buy 3 fat quarters or 3 1/4 yard cuts, but it wasn't very easy for me to go in and buy 3 yards of fabric. So, and I like going quilt shop shopping. And so I just started picking up fat quarters all the time. And so then when it came time to use them, I pretty much had to make scrappy quilts. And that's okay with me. It fits. It's a good fit for me. Nowadays I buy lots of my fabric at a thrift store. I take donated fabric from blog readers and work those into my quilts. I'm not real picky about what I sew. I just like the ease, the methodology, the relaxation of putting pieces underneath the needle. And so that's what I do now. And I'm not, I think I'm more, I love the quilts how they look when I'm done. And I love that, but I like the methodology and the ability that quilting gives you so that you can ignore thinking about things you don't want to think about. So somebody asked me if I'm doing okay. Yes, I'm doing okay. I do still have my active cancer going on, but I'm still able to work and do the things that I want to do at this point. And I'm appreciating that and taking advantage of it while I can. So, back to my quilt that we're working on. Previously, I gathered all these strips and I sewed them into strip sets. So some were strip sets that were dark, light, dark, and some were strip sets that were light, dark, light. So this is what I mean by dark, light, dark, because you can see a dark strip, a white light strip, and then another dark strip. Then I went to the iron, and I pressed all of the seams to the dark side, and so you can see my seams are pressed. You can see some stray threads too. But you can see my seams are pressed to the dark. And then I made some strip sets that were light, dark, light. You can see them here. And I pressed it so all of the seams went towards the dark fabric. And then I started making 9-patch blocks. Well, I actually started making these quite some time ago. And in fact, when I put out a UFO list in July, I made a UFO list of all the projects that I had going on that weren't completed. And I have these in a bag here, and these are all of my 9 patches that I did. For these, all of these 9 patches are based with the dark blue in the corner. And every print in the block is different. They're just very scrappy. And I made these, I didn't even know what I was going to do with them. I just sat down one day and needed a project, and mostly I like something that I can take downstairs, iron in between times, like when the noodles are boiling, when I'm making supper, things like that. And so I had sewn some strip sets, taken them downstairs, cut them, made them into 9 patches. I thought at one point I'll make some kind of quilt with them. I wasn't sure what kind of quilt I'd make with them. I just knew that, well, I could make 132 9 patches and I could figure out some kind of quilt eventually down the road to make with them. So that's where I am That's where I was probably a month ago. And these were just sitting in my UFO pile. I hadn't done anything with them. And then I went to Cotton Cabin Quilt Shop in Dubuque, Iowa. It's a very nice shop. If you're ever in Dubuque, you can go check it out. And I was looking around. I actually went there to get some wool because I've recently become a little bit addicted to wool applique. In fact, I'm going to hopefully do something wool applique yet today, because that's wool applique is just on my brain. I've been sorting and doing things to try to get that to come together. I have some old projects, and I have wool in one spot, some patterns in one spot, this in one spot, that in one spot, and I'm trying to reorganize it so that my wool is usable. I told you that right now I have like 2-inch buckets and 2.5-inch buckets, and it's made me be able to very much use my fabric and not just collect fabric, because I do want to use my fabric. I understand totally that some people just like to collect fabric, and I have no problem with that. You do you, and if that's what you like, that's great. But me, I wanted to be able to use my fabric, and getting it into a system allows me to be able to use my fabric. So I need to do that with my wool, because right now my wool is in one big bucket, well, one under the bed tote that is bigger pieces, and then I have one under the bed tote that's smaller pieces. Well, if I've got to make something, I've got to go dig and sort and dig, and I don't always have time for that. I need something that I can walk to the space, I can pull what I need out, and I can use it. So I'm planning on doing that with my wool, because I just really would like to get it in one spot and together and usable. So in that light, being I'm so crazy about wool, I wanted to go to the Cotton Cabin and see if they had wool, because I've been there years ago and they used to have wool, and I was hoping that they still had wool, because not all places have wool anymore that used to have wool. Well, when I was there, I came across this Maggie Bononomy book, and I have been wanting this book. This is Buttonwood Farm. It says 19 new primitive projects. And so I was pretty excited because I found that, because I'm a Maggie Bononomy fan and I like her primitive wool pieces. I like the stuff that's not primitive too. But while I was going through the book, I noticed this quilt. You can see it here. It's just a checkerboard 9-patch quilt. She doesn't construct it in 9 patches, but that was my plan, is that I'd make something like this and construct it in 9 patches. When I look at this, she did use different blue fabrics, but she used all the same light fabric, and all of them was like a very white color. And it looks very nice and fresh, but I don't have, you know, a bazillion yards of white fabric, and I already had these blocks going. So why not mix her idea and my idea and make some blocks that were all scrappy and all different looking, and just make a checkerboard quilt. And so here's another look at it. There's the checkerboard quilt. It looks so pretty out on this bed. I don't know if you can see that or not, if the light's glaring terribly, but it looks so nice. So I thought, well, that would be a great way to finish up that into a nice project and a nice UFO. And a nice UFO would get cleaned up. And that would be awesome, because I like that idea. So I decided that I would need to make some alternate blocks, because I have these 9-patch blocks, but now I need to make some so that it's light, dark, light across here. And so that when they put together, it'll make a checkerboard. So that's what I'm kind of working on. I have 132 of these blocks, but I need more of those. I have a couple buckets here, and let me see what I have. Okay, so I have this bucket right here, and I've told you before, these are my favorite things in my sewing room that I use for collecting and working on projects. They're just the perfect size for me. So anyway, previous to this video, I made a bunch of strip sets, got the strip sets all cut, and I started sewing some more 9-patch blocks together, more of the blue, white, blue pieces, so that the blue is in the corner. And I have 21 more of those done in this bucket. And in this bucket, this is how I sew. I kind of like to show this to you because I just like you to see exactly how I sew, because I'm kind of goofy. I'm not very good at counting. Well, I can count obviously, but I don't do it because I'm kind of a haphazard quilter, and I just want other people who are like me to know that's okay. You still get projects done. So I have a bunch here that these all need to be ironed, and so I've just been throwing in my blocks that are already done but not ironed into this bucket. And then so one day I'll just take this bucket downstairs and I will iron these. I don't know, while I'm waiting for the dryer to get done drying, or I'm waiting for cookies to come out of the oven. And that's just what I do. I have these, and then I kind of allot my time out that way so that I can still do something fun while I'm doing something that I have to do. And it still gets my projects moving along without having to dedicate purposeful time to that step in the project. And that was my phone. I don't know what it wants, but I'm just going to ignore that. So we're at the quilting. We're here at the machine. And so I thought we'd just make some more blocks. I think my daughter Kelly figured out somewhere, I have a note here. Yes. See, I'm very haphazard, and people think I'm organized, and I'm really not. I just have buckets, and the buckets keep me safe. So I need 221 of the colorway that I've already showed you, this with the 9 patches with the blue corners on the outside, and I need 220 that are not. And I can't remember how big of a quilt that's going to make me, but probably something around 90 by 90. I don't remember for sure. Oh, another thing that's different in this book, she made her quilt so that they finish at 1 inch, and these instead will finish in the quilt at 1.5 inches. And that's totally okay too. I'm just kind of taking my UFO and morphing it into something that's similar to her idea. And people have made blue and white quilts for years and years and years. There's no real pattern to it. There's just stuff that needs to be done. So over here I have a bucket of the white, dark white. These are just Dollar General or Dollar Tree bins, and these are dishwasher bins, or, well, here's one kind of dishwasher soap, here's another kind of dishwasher soap, and here's an eclair bin. And so I have stuff all sorted out and going on here, and I can make this work. I'm going to actually put this one the ones that aren't ironed right on top because they stack so nicely like this. Put that here, so when I finish blocks I'll be throwing them in there. These are my dark light dark strips. These are my light dark light strips, and I'm just going to get sewing because I don't know if I need to make more strip sets. So that's what happens with me. I don't count and I don't figure that out. I just sew along, and if I end up with 5 extra blocks, they're just probably going to go in the back of the quilt, and we'll be all good with that. I'm not real picky about having the exact number of things cut or the exact number of units sewn to finish blocks. I dropped something. I got to grab it. Okay, so you can see I already have a piece in the machine here, and I'm doing what people refer to as chain piecing. So I'm just putting one set in, and I'm butting this next set next to it, and I'm just feeding it through. And this way I don't have to worry about thread catching up in the bottom and the feed dogs of my machine. And ever since I learned how to do this, I have been so incredibly much more happy, because this is chain piecing is just like heaven to me. I could chain piece here and sit here for hours and hours. I used to make just a ton of Bonnie Hunter quilts, and people would always go, how can you stand to make 527 half square triangles? Me, I want to do that. I want to be that girl, because I just love the rhythm of just putting pieces into the machine and taking pieces out. So a lot of times I use my work surface here. I've got some pieces over here that are the dark, light, dark, and here the light, dark, light. And I don't really even pay attention to what pieces are going together in the block, because when everything's said and done, you're not going to notice if 2 pieces are the same or close to each other in a big scrappy quilt like this. This is probably, oh, I would say project number 4 that I have going on right now. I'm kind of jumped in over deep and working on probably too many projects at once. But it's okay because I'm working on the project in the long arm, and as I said, I kind of my shoulders could use a little rest from that, and my brain could use a little rest from that. So it's nice to have another project that I can come to the machine and sit down and get into the rhythm of sewing. So, oh, my home phone is ringing. I don't know if you can hear it or not. I am just going to ignore that because Dime to Donuts, it's probably a telemarketer, and they probably want to know how I'm going to vote in the upcoming Iowa caucus. I know the Iowa caucus, being that we're first in the nation, it brings lots of money to Iowa, but it's also a huge pain in the butt for us Iowans because we get tons of telemarketer kind of survey calls all the time leading up to the election, and leading up to the caucus, and I just do not love that. As you can see, I don't pin. I am not a pinner. I just don't feel the need to because all of my seams were already pressed, and the seams, they just come together like this and they nest. Being that I ironed everything to the dark side, then this seam is going upwards and this seam is going downwards. So I just do this with my fingers, kind of like move them back and forth, and I get that seam tightly together, and then I set it up and I put it into the machine, and then I kind of work to get the next seam together, and I run that. And I hate the extra step of pinning, and I'm not super picky that everything is absolutely positively perfect. Do my seams come together? I would say 95% of them do, and that's good enough for me. Well, it looks like I need a few more blues. Right now what I'm kind of trying to do is work on getting a few more of the blue 9 patches done, so then I can count and figure out if I need more strips cut, more strip sets cut. We've been really lucky here lately with snow. I'm not a gal that loves snow. I don't mind snow on the ground. I don't mind winter, but I hate winter driving. I don't love winter. I never used to be this way, but I really like summer now. And I don't know if my feelings about winter have changed or if my feelings about summer have changed, or a little bit of both probably. I love gardening. I love flowers. I love being outside. I love walking the dogs in nice weather. But I can appreciate a snow day as well. I actually really love a snow day. I've talked to my oldest daughter Kelly a couple times, and she is the mom with kids home on a snow day, and the mom of kids who are a little bit little to be outside in the snow by themselves. So she isn't having the best snow day. I remember those days myself, that when the kids were like, excuse me, too little to kick outside. But I'm just working pieces through. And I don't really, like I said, count or do anything. I'll just like work and get these pieces through, and then I'll probably clip how many I have here, and then I'll start sewing the other side on so we can see how many blocks we have. Now that I'm thinking of it, I maybe should make these into light, dark, light pieces. And the reason I'm saying that is because I have some here that aren't ironed and I have no idea how many there are. So maybe I should make some with the light and add lights to them, because I know I have a lot of lights because I specifically made a lot of lights because I knew I already had quite a few darks done. So after I get however many, there's no specific amount, I just cut them apart with my little handy cutter here. This is a cutter from a company called Purple Hobbies. They are a company that's from the US, just a small independent company, not very big. And I love my little cutter. It's got a little rotary cutter blade in there. I talked to you about that in the last video. And red is my favorite color, so you can get it in pretty much any color you want it in. And of course I picked red because I like red. Red's my favorite color. It was my mom's favorite color too. Now, I don't iron these at this point. I just add the next piece on. I'm not a big time ironer. I never have been, probably never will be. I have one iron that I put water in, and that is the iron that I use for wool applique. Again, I'm just nesting those seams and not worrying about pins. I think sometimes people ask, you know, how do you get so many quilts done, or how do you sew so fast? One of the things is I don't stop and pin everything. If I'm making a curved seam quilt, or maybe connecting something on a bias or doing something like that, I might. But if I'm just doing simple square to square quilting, I rarely, if ever, pin. That doesn't mean I don't love pin cushions, because I really love pin cushions and fun pins, you know. Another thing that I don't do very much is iron. I'll iron all of these now and press them so that they'll nest together. I've got some old fabrics in here and some new fabrics. Just a mixture of everything. I think this print right here is something that I picked up at the thrift store. I think this is an old VIP print. If you're, well, over 50, you probably remember what a VIP print was. That was a fabric company probably in the 70s or 80s. Probably the 80s, I would say. I remember my mom would get fabric, and on the selvage it would say VIP. And that fabric is all still usable now, especially in a quilt like this where the pieces are so small. I have some pieces that are left over from odd projects in here. I have sometimes if I need more, well, I can see this print right here. This is the backing for a quilt that we made for Moda Bake Shop. Back when we did some Moda Bake Shop projects. I love, yeah, here's that same print right here. I'll show it to you. This print right here. This is from William Moore's collection. I don't remember who used to design that, but that is a project from a quilt we did for Moda Bake Shop. I think it's Cheddar something. I don't remember the name of it for sure, but that's what that print is from. And I just like to use them up in quilts and it doesn't bother me, because so I have a print of that, and there's going to be one of those VI pre-prints. I think this is a VI print right here as well. And so it's just fun to put these blocks together and see them come together, my old with my new. One time I went to an auction and they had a big box of reproduction prints, and the reproduction prints, there's a lot of them that were blue, and I ended up buying the box of fabric. I don't know, I can't remember how many yards I got, but it was just a lot of yards of fabric, and it was all reproduction prints, and I didn't spend very much money for it all. I think it figured out that the prints were just, oh, I don't know, $2 a yard or something like that. And I still use those prints now too. This print was from the first quilt kit I ever bought. I can look at that and see and remember. I bought it when, let me think. Jill Reichs owned a shop in Cresco, Minnesota that was called Pine Needles, and she has since moved down to Cedar Rapids, and the name of her shop has changed to Inspired to Sew, and that is one of the prints I bought. Here it is again in this one. That's one of the prints I bought that was in the quilt kit that I made then. So I just love, that's one of the reasons why I love making scrappy quilts too, is I attach a lot of memories to the fabrics and I can remember them. Because when you're making a quilt, you see the same print so many times that you can remember where you got it. Or a lot of times people will collect souvenirs when they go on vacation. My preference is to find the quilt shop somewhere and to buy a couple fat quarters, and I often remember, oh, I bought this when we went on vacation to so-and-so or something like that. That's fun for me. I'm kind of a little bit of an unusual person in that the quilt that I have on the quilt rack, my oversized flying geese, scrappy flying geese quilt, that quilt, the backing of that is a sheet that I got at Goodwill, and I had to cut it and put it together so that it would be big enough. And that's totally fine, but in the process, I ended up with some leftover fabric, and it's this fabric right here. It's 100% cotton, it's a sheet, and I will end up cutting this up and mixing that in with my other fabric, and this will be perfectly fine to use in a scrap project like this. And that doesn't bother me at all to do that. Some people are very, oh, you have to have quilt shop fabric, and that's totally okay. Everybody can do whatever they want to do, but for me, I have a small budget, and so I want to be able to still be able to sew. And so one of the things I do is I use sheets for backing of quilts. I don't have any trouble with my machine when I do that. I've heard some people say that they end up with thread breakage if they use sheets for the back of their quilts. I don't have that problem. And so for me, it's 100% cotton fabric, so it's okay. I've worn sheets and washed sheets for years and years and years. I've had a set of sheets for 5 years before, and the fabric never wore out. So I don't have a problem and I don't use like low quality cotton sheets, and I don't use the highest quality of cotton sheets. I use something kind of in between whenever I'm using it for a backing for a quilt, and I end up using the leftovers and cut them up and throw up in my scrap bucket, and it just extends my fabric that I do have. That's nice fabric, quilt shop fabric. It just extends it a little bit further, and I have no problem with that at all. And in a scrappy quilt like this, unless you get something that obviously looks like a sheet, you'll never know the difference. But again, I understand that that's just something that I do, not everybody does. But I think that's one of the reasons why you're watching the video here, is like you like to kind of see how other people do things. And so I like to share that with you, even if it's sometimes an unpopular opinion. Okay, this whole batch has been through the machine, So I'm going to run one set of just these two together through the machine again so that I can take this block off and cut that one off. You know how I always talk about my little handy dandy buckets here? I have one right here that has a piece of paper in it, but it's empty. So I'm going, this bucket that I started here are the dark light darks. This bucket here, or these new ones that I just sewed, are the light dark lights. So they'll go together like this so that they'll continue the checkerboard. But I'm not going to start sewing those together yet. I just want to collect and see how many I have. So I don't want to mix them up in the same bucket. So I'm going to put these in this new bucket. And I'm going to grab my little cutter over here and cut these apart. And they're just going to go in this bucket. Slow and steady, this quilt is going to get done. I had a sweet blog reader, Isla, send me some backing fabric for this quilt. She saw that I was busy making it and offered to send me some fabric, and I said sure. I think she actually sent 2 sheets and some fabric, so I'm not sure which one will match the best, but whatever one that is, that's the one I'm going to use. I'm kind of excited about that because having a backing already ready to go kind of gives me a little push to keep working on and getting the quilt done a little sooner. I would say I'm getting close to half done, and I like that idea to be half done. So, okay, so my video just dropped off. It says that I don't have enough memory in my memory card, and so I'm really sorry, but this is going to probably be a shorter video this time just because of that, and I'm going to have my daughter Calissa look at the camera. Last time I was out of battery, this time I'm out of memory. So, thanks for bearing with me. I know I've had a lot of people request that I do a Sew with Jo video, so at least I got a little bit shot and doing a little bit better, a little bit filmed, and I appreciate you caring about me and following along. You can follow me every day on my blog, joescountryjunction.com. You can see what I'm up to. You can see how these projects progress and see where I'm at with them. But for now, I'm going to say goodbye. See you later. Thanks. Bye.